Thank you for the intro. Thanks, Rory, for inviting me. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here in the first week or two because you all look really awake and fresh, so that's really good. I've sort of grabbed a few different bits and pieces to talk about. It's quite a few slides, so don't get too worried. I'll try and stick to the 20 minutes or 30 minutes time. I will. I'm very good at time usually. Anyway, Studio Bright. I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the practice first of all. And this is the team. It's a small practice. I mean, in some ways, for me, the practice is like another little design project. So a lot about the practice is me thinking about where I'd like to work and almost trying to make that. So I had a lot of great different experiences after I finished uni. Some good, some not so good, but a lot of it I've really thought about how do I make a practice where I would like to work. And so in part it's quite selfish. But the nice thing is other people like to work there too because they like similar things, and so that's really enjoyable. So a lot of the team actually doesn't change. We're sort of squeezing people in between desks, and not many people have been leaving, so that's a nice thing. And we're not out in the country, we're actually lucky enough to be in this old barn down on the banks of the Yarra River in Kew, just over from Richmond. And we converted this little barn. It's where I live, and in many ways, it's a sort of personal project. It suited me. I had young kids, and I like being able to race home and still have dinner with them and be around and stuff like that. Or I like that they know that the good biscuits are in the pantry in the office, not at the house, so they come and say hello and things like that. So my husband and I, decide to fit out his little boat building barn to become the studio. We're sort of quickly running out of space. But a lot of that is about designing a good life, and I like to think about this idea that working at Studio Bright should be good for you. So not just filling your architectural ambitions. It's a cosy space upstairs. And because we're on the property, which is really lovely, we have the garden, and my new thing after COVID is we've employed a sort of office admin / chef 3 days a week. And people go, oh, that's so generous of you, Mel, to do that. But really, I just like nice food and I want someone to make it for me. And the team happen to enjoy that too. So it really works well. And so actually the team eat lunch together every single day. And I think when new people sometimes come and join us, I sort of look at them thinking, shit, I've joined a cult. You know, it's just sort of almost, it may be a little bit confronting, but we're all just so used to it. It's not a kind of once in a while thing. And there's more salads just because everyone's got all these weird dietaries. So it used to be that everyone cooked it. And so the reason I employed this new admin person was really I went, it doesn't make great business sense to have my two great architects cooking lunch for 2 hours every day. And, you know, they raised their standards. The food standards got, I thought, too high. So anyway, I couldn't keep up with them. So we all eat lunch, often outside. And then the other thing is I feel like I really need to do as much exercise as I can, and that's increasing as I get older. I found that I couldn't fit that in with, you know, little kids and running a business. And so I used to try and do training at lunchtime, but again, I felt a bit guilty that I was sort of taking time off from the studio. So I said, well, I'll bring a personal trainer here and you guys can all join in. And so the team now all do personal training with me on Mondays, and we increased it to Fridays too in COVID. So it's now become PT on Mondays and Pilates on Fridays, and you can all put your applications to work for me, but there's no room at the minute. But the thing I like about that is, again, you know, like it's sort of, you're healthy. And I do think that these fundamental things, and if you want to even talk about the business sense, you go, oh, you're making lunch for everyone and that must cost a lot. But if you want to be like really brutal about it, I look at it and go, everyone's working their butts off. They get a really nice healthy lunch. They're not often sick because, you know, they're fit and healthy, eating good food. And most of the time people are sitting there eating a quick lunch and going, I'm quite busy, I'm going to go back to work, rather than taking an hour off to go over to wherever and hang around. So anyway, I feel like it works both ways. I just like the photo of the chickens in the office. We got bees, and so we have honey, and you know, I'm quite excited about regenerating the landscape, and so there's these sort of side projects as well. I love the water dragons. We've got this sort of little wetland that's Blackwater treatment plant, and I like that there's little frogs growing in there as well. So anyway, little side projects. The other thing for me is the practice is incredibly personal. Because it's at home, it's a slightly sort of odd thing to come and visit us. And so it is personal. That's sometimes good because it's disarming to sort of corporate clients. My husband's boat building, he wouldn't give me the whole building, so he still has his workshop there, and the kids hang around, and I like that. And so there's a little daybed where my kids sometimes visit me. Or the chickens, again. So anyway, you wanted to hear about architecture. Look, that to me is one of the most lovely things I've done, and I have great joy in working with really lovely people who also like doing that. So you might also go, oh, it sounds like a great life. Everyone works so hard. You know, they work so hard. I'm demanding, sometimes difficult. And everyone understands that we're trying to achieve the absolute best buildings we can, no matter what scale, size or type. So don't be sort of, seduced by the nice sandwiches. There's a lot of hard work that happens. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about what we hope our buildings will do. Then I was going to just talk about 3 projects. You know, I studied at RMIT. I used to find at RMIT that I felt so out of my depth for the whole course, in real truth. And in the end, I think I'm still doing the things that I am interested in now, and it sort of all makes sense to me now. You know, why I did my thesis project, why I chose that, why I was interested in that. You know, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of the things we're interested in are actually just quite simple things. So we like our work to be context-driven, site-responsive, that it should respond to the place for houses or larger city buildings. And in many ways, I started the practice doing houses, and a lot of that sort of desire was that our houses would also have civic ambitions, that we weren't just making private houses for private clients, but that the houses had a role to play in the suburb. We think much can be gained from giving some things up: privacy, security, and a little bit of space. So some of our houses are sort of pushed hard on the boundary or open up to the public realm. We try and take care of the past, and we think history and context offer so much richness. So, you know, how I suppose we might respond to a red brick Melbourne lane with this, that's our autumn house. But I suppose instead of this sort of solid masonry, it's a delicate veil, but in the same colour. Or our Loftus Lane project, which I was going to talk about, that incorporates an artwork by Jonathan Jones, a First Nations artist that did this incredible arcade ceiling installation. We also think that most often the things with the biggest impact are not the biggest things. And really that starts to talk about we're really hoping to design good places for people. So seats and things like that are really important to us. And because a lot of our houses are on small sites in a city, Melbourne, they have to work really hard. And so we think you have to make the edges work as hard as you can. Squeezing things in, squeezing gardens in where they might not have where you might not have thought they could fit. Fruity enough to be delightful. I'm sure there's a better way to say this, but in some ways we think design should give you some joy. It could be fun, and sometimes that's in colour, often in bathrooms, because that's the only place someone will let us do something a bit weird. Or this little primary school project where we did a water tank colonnade, you know, for the little kids to understand about water and resources and measuring. There's a little tap on each one. We hope our work is joyful and it might make you smile, and that it should be gentle and kind, but never apologetic. And we think you should know the rules, but be smart enough to know how to work your way around them. So this is really just a privacy and an overlooking screen. Often those, the planning rule says 25% blah, 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 or the swimming pool rules of the pool fence and how you might work around that. We think landscape should never be an afterthought and that it's as important as the architecture itself. So obviously with the houses, rooftop gardens, squeezing landscape in where you might not have thought a garden would be possible. And we think you should invest as much effort in the details as the big idea. So materiality, we do quite a few brick projects. This is a Monash robotics project. And then we think you should always think about the other clients at the table, the city, the suburb, and the next generation. And that there's no excuse for a building that doesn't respond to climate. Simple things, catch the sun, provide shade, feel the breeze, warm your bones. And we think we should design with empathy and kindness and try and do good things. It's a pretty broad thing. I'm going to talk about this project too, which is our Women's Property Initiative's small housing project. So, 3 projects. I picked a house, the Loftus Lane project in Sydney and that small WPI project, so we can sort of have a quick look through. This one we just finished. It's a slightly odd pink breeze block house in Cremorne in Richmond. It's on Wurundjeri country. Here you can see where it is. There's Melbourne City and there's the site. Squeezed in on this site sort of with in Cremorne where there's tiny little single front houses but also large whole block developments. This is the existing house. That's what it ended up looking like. It's obviously got a heritage overlay. A lot of our houses have that constraint. And really it was about trying to sort of pack in the amenity of almost a suburban house into a 4.5 metre wide site. So the clients initially said, it's just our 5-year house, and I said, we're not very good at them. We usually do sort of, forever houses. And in the end, they're going to stay here. So that's a pretty nice thing. Anyway, that's the existing condition. It had a tiny little lane down the side, has up high views of the city. There's the existing building here, demolishing the back bits, keeping the front heritage building. And the standard response would be to put, I suppose, a big open plan room on the back. My issue with that is it only ever gives this sort of one room, this garden outlook. So we liked the idea of splitting it up and thinking about how that would link and start to make a couple of these small courtyard spaces that might then also think about how you might actually expand out onto that borrowed laneway. So thinking about density and how we might, it's not a new thing to activate lanes in Melbourne, but I suppose often for sort of residential projects, the idea, it's often, we better build a big fence to keep the baddies out. But we've talked a lot about how one might use that as your borrowed backyard. And then, talking about giving some things up. So actually setting the plan in so we can make this space for a garden and a rooftop. And that we imagine one day it will be covered in green as, I suppose, something that offers something back to the little lane. So you can see here that fence slides back. This is the little lane. I put this one in. Just wrong project. But more, I suppose, in some ways, you sort of develop on all the past projects, and really we've been doing these double skin projects for some time. In many ways, they solve a few, sun privacy, sun shading, planning rules, things like that. So this is sort of the next in a series of projects that have a double skin that we use to do a series of things, balustrade, fall prevention, a growing frame. So this is the sort of next in the little line of studies, I suppose, of these screens that we might use as a double facade. But you know, even here, like it's a tiny bathroom, so making this plan work really hard, getting a bath and a shower in, and I don't like standing in those sort of baths that, you know, feel like you're going to slip over. Really tight spaces everywhere, so really making every single little bit of surface do something. And then get, you know, this outlook, I suppose. And in many ways, like we've tried, you sort of see the little daybed there. So there's like lots of living rooms, but there's no big living space. That's the little lounge room. I'll jump through a little bit. And then upstairs to the bedroom. And really what you can see here, you see what we did is we've offset this facade, which is a pretty big move because the client's like, oh, that's our main bedroom, and we really don't almost fit the bed in. But we convinced them that if we did this, we could fit a stair up inside that garden space and then get the rooftop garden to work as well. And then you get this really lovely outlook from your bed into the garden with privacy from the sort of neighbours, and a stair up to the rooftop, which is just there. I won't talk about the detailing, but lots and lots of precision detailing, crazy site. That's the sort of, you know, you can sort of appreciate how small the site is. I feel, you know, that's the site, with actually grabbing a bit of the laneway. Making every single thing line up to breeze block dimensions, things like that. Working through how you might support them, how you might mitre the corners, how you might do the floor and hide the expansion joins. Oh, this then happened. The client said, oh, Mel, you know, our neighbours have proposed a development, you know, out the back on this vacant site. And I said, oh, that's interesting. But what's funny, what I kind of like about it, it's a not very good project, but they're proposing to use this lane as their new front door. So previously this site actually only had frontage on another street. But I like that the sort of these little contributions might suggest that this is actually a good bit of useful urban space. So I don't know, to me that means it was a slight success. Quay Quarter Lanes, this is a project that we started in 2014. I do feel like it took a lot of my life. And we got this, it's another whole story about how we got this project, but it's on Gadigal country, up here in Circular Quay. We were basically invited to, as a sort of emerging practice, to do the project, and there was a group of other architects all doing their own buildings on the same site. There was 2 heritage buildings, and then SJB were doing a multi-res building. Sylvester Fuller got this one, and we were given this one. So that's our building here. Sylvester Fuller's there, SJB, and we all worked together over many years, which was a kind of amazing experience. Because you got to see what each other practice was doing. So it was just this sort of incredible learning experience. That was the existing building. And really, you know, that's the existing lane. And so a lot about this project was, it was multi-res, but a lot about it was about how do we actually make a good bit of city here. So we worked together as a group, thinking about how we would activate this laneway as a new bit of city making. Planning diagrams, thinking about the rules, going, well, you want us to build that, but really it's just about not overshadowing that. So maybe we can actually start to shift that wedding cake planning form and let the things gently kiss the edge. Thinking about how you might turn a corner. And we convinced them that there was never a rooftop garden proposed, but we convinced the City of Sydney that it would be possible to do it. And the developers said, oh, we don't really need that, Mel, but we convinced them because we showed them that we could then get the lift to serve level 7, and that made the apartments worth more money, so they then supported it. So that was how we got through that. And in the end, it's this sort of fantastic place, you know, for the apartments. Thinking about city making again, a stopping place on that lane, that new arcade link that we worked with Jonathan Jones to deliver that sort of fantastic arcade artwork. and how we might actually really, it was sort of almost a building in the round. So thinking about an awning that might wrap around all sides. And working really hard to get this building to be activated on all sides, so retail and things like that. You can see here, thinking about the facade and how that might be a contemporary building that's quiet, that sits happily next to the Sydney sandstone, but it's still its own thing. So we sort of imagined from the beginning it would be in those soft grey bricks. That's that back laneway. And just to quickly whip you through, we imagined the arcade as that's the sort of, I suppose, the entry to the apartment building. So 2 cores on either side, retail wrapping around. There's some complicated stuff with providing a basement museum for the Gallipoli Memorial Club. So a lot of the sort of background of this building was how hard it's working underneath. There's a heritage drain that runs underneath our building that we had to build over, under and around. So it was kind of full of technical complications that you don't see. So the thing that sort of I'm proud of, I suppose, is how well it's activating that bit of city with all this stuff going on around it. A basement with no columns, connecting to another car park around under the drain, thanks Rory, and then still managing to get this to be a sort of activated building that contributes back to the city. Little Melbourne laneways. And tucked away restaurants on level 1, ducking sort of up. Then these are the apartments. And really it's just a mirrored plan, you'll sort of see there. 2 lift cores come up. And the nice thing about that is we got outlook on each of the lift cores. So they both get facade access and you kind of get this quite lovely little lobby space that's quite sort of intimate and personal, just 3 doors to other apartments. Lobby garden, 1 beds, 2 beds with full cross vent. Facade. That's all west facing, this facade, so we liked the idea that you could sort of shut it down and still get the breeze. Also, aspects, I suppose, of privacy. That's the little lobby gardens. Just stuck you through the apartment interiors. I suppose like really caring about bulkheads, it's really boring, but if you don't care about all the services and all the stuff, you just get, ugly things coming through, so designing all that stuff. And then basically the building shifts in and makes those larger terraces up higher and then shifts in again at level 7. That's one of those level 6 apartments. Designing, every detail. I mean, the killer for this was that we really approached it like a house. So that meant we did way too many drawings, way too much detail. It drove the builder mad. It drove us mad. It was something we were very happy to finish. It was really incredible that it's been so well recognised. So that was, but I do feel like sometimes we win awards and it's like, oh, we won, fantastic. It's like winning a race. But this was like someone saying, Mel, we acknowledge your pain and your suffering. Here you go. That's the rooftop garden that we fought for, that kept, that hid that lift overrun. And this is just, I like showing these sections because you just got to understand all the stuff going on around that drain and how all those things are working, in the background. We made a custom brick with custom radiuses. And then this one, we really did a very small lot of work on this project. I really wanted to do social housing. No one would really give us social housing, so we did it because we wanted to do it for low fees. And it is quite quick because it's a very tiny little project. It's for women at risk of homelessness. And I'll jump through that. You probably know all about it, but it was an important thing for us to do to contribute back and to address some pretty serious issues in housing. And I really like that we're doing that, whilst doing the Circular Quay project, where they're selling the 1-bedroom apartment for 1.2 million. On the lowest floor, or our, nicer sort of house projects in urban Melbourne. Bunurong country. Well, the site was a long way out, but it was chosen because of its affordability and access to services. So railway station, reserve, and it had an activity centre, a new one and an existing one. Really, it was for 4 single-storey, 2-bedroom units, really for a single woman. And it was a new model that WPI were testing that was sort of a pilot program. So we're still waiting to hear how that's working, but it was really for one person, but they were going to be 2-bedroom units. And really it was about trying to provide a place for women that were often sort of locked into moving on to increasing rental properties and never having a sort of secure home. So there was a financial model that's a separate probably lecture that was set up. But we were really just designing it. So on a small sort of suburban street, very sort of low-rise street, site context there. So to make it affordable, offset from boundary. We liked the idea that you might activate the front yard. We had to have cars. People always ask me that, but that was a requirement to have cars. So bringing them on the south, getting the private open space sort of on the north, giving solar access to that private open space, and thinking about a repeatable unit with shared party walls. And we thought, since we have to have cars, why don't we try and make that at least a useful thing? So, so that what we do is double the 2 car spaces. So maybe rather than them becoming car spaces, you could imagine it like a kind of shared communal space as well. So we tried to elevate what we might see as a standard sort of car space response and invest a bit of effort there. So more like a covered veranda. And a space where you could talk to your neighbour if you wanted. And then we brought in these little pop-ups that we thought would be really nice to just give some identity to each unit, but also give access. Often, I think affordable housing, it's sort of, you know, there's no generosity in the ceiling height. And so I really liked that we could do that, but also as a device to get solar access in. Solar panels for ongoing affordability, water tanks, and an activated front yard with these little, we pretty much helped plant these as well, just because we wanted this project to work. But with a seat, with a little troughs for a veggie garden for each resident as well. That's that sort of section where you can see that sort of generosity into the living space. And just here you can see the floor plan. We were asked to do that sort of mirrored floor plan. We were asked to do 2 bedrooms, and I suppose one of the key things we did was just say, rather than putting the 2 bedrooms together out the back, if we put one of the bedrooms here, because it's not going to be used that much, it could be a flexible space with an operable wall, and so ends up that you can actually run it as a larger living space and shut it down if you've got a guest or a grandchild visiting. So just trying to think about really simple plan moves that actually don't really cost that much more, but that give that flexibility. Similarly, you can see with the car space that it can be, this is how I would like to see it. But anyway, we took photos the day we'd put some plants in, so we're looking forward to seeing it, really grown over. The wisteria here, hoping it will look like this one day. That's that sort of space in the living space, and the bedroom that opens up to make that more generous. Every little back courtyard has a fruit tree. And really we then thought, so that you could actually send this project around to other sites, maybe that little pop-up could be the thing that allows you to adjust the orientation so that you can grab sun no matter the orientation of another site, and they could then roll them out if they wanted to. That's about it. Thanks.